Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Charles Bateman. We'll be discussing his fantastic poetry book, Twisted Spiritual Poetry. Available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. But guys, listen, if you want to gather everything that Charles has to offer, you got to do yourself a favor and you have to head to his personal site. And that's twistedspiritualpoetry.com. There, not only will you find more information on Charles himself, you'll find more information on this fantastic book, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's twistedspiritualpoetry.com. And guys, I will say that Charles was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, Workbook Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, well, do yourself a favor and get the best gift you could possibly give yourself and contact Workbook Press. And you can find out more information on them at workbookpress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Charles here on the line, okay? Now, the moment you go to his website, twistedspiritualpoetry.com, you go to his Amazon page, his Barnes & Noble page, you start to do any research on his book, well, you instantly understand what we're going to be discussing today, okay? Now, I'm looking forward to it for multiple reasons. A, it's a poetry book, but it's almost a poetry/memoir book, okay? Because it's really going to be taken directly from Charles' his experiences, right? Throughout his life and his belief in his religion, which happens to be Christianity in this instance, but also his battle with drug addiction. And, some other fictional things thrown in just for entertainment. But, guys, that memoir part of it, right, I absolutely love. And that's really where I'm going to latch on here with my intro. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm not going to steal Charles's thunder, okay? This is his book. He's written it. He's pulling from his experience. And he's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could anyway. But since, we're starting here, guys, what I love so much about it, right, is that old adage, your experiences equate to wisdom, right? Well, here's the wonderful part, is it doesn't always have to be your experience that wisdom is derived from, okay? And I absolutely love that. I love when I have authors here on the network that have written memoirs, because there's always so much knowledge, so much wisdom to be gained. All you have to do is stop and listen, right? All you have to do is stop and read the words on the page, and taking that information, implementing it into your day-to-day lives is really what's going to help you receive the true benefits that this book and so many others have to offer. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Charles, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
I'm good, Benji. How are you?
Fantastic. And thank you very much for being a guest with us. We're looking forward to all the information and all the wisdom that we're going to be able to receive from you, Charles. Now, I know we have so much information to cover, and because your book is, again, it's a poetry book, but taken from your experiences, so already it's almost like a memoir in terms of the information. I want to start quickly, though, with a little bit more of background information on you. Charles, please, before we jump into your book, tell our listening audience a little bit more about your background and a little bit more about yourself, please.
Well, my background, I grew up in a very religious home. My father was a Marine, and he was also a Presbyterian minister, and he had an overseas ministry with the Korean Navy, and he did that for about 20 years.
Wow.
And in 1982, he took his own life.
Oh,
and
so sorry.
And that was a major shock.
Yeah,
and but we pulled through it, and life does go on. But you really never get over something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, started doing drugs pretty early on. It started with marijuana. And then later on, I graduated up to cocaine. And then from there, I went to meth and heroin and alcohol to deal with my demons. And was just a very negative and austere life. It just didn't. I wasn't happy. I was always depressed, always questioning myself, and always wanting to be something better than what I was.
Absolutely. You know, Charles, first and foremost, man, A, thank you for relaying all of that information to us. B, my sincerest condolences to the passing of your father, and I'm sure the devastation that it left behind on yourself as well as your family has been absolutely monumental. And again, our sincerest apologies and our sincerest condolences to you and your loved ones.
Thank you.
You know, Charles, I'm gonna take a quick moment and just commend you on. And I know, listen, I have friends and very close people in my life that have also battled addiction in many different aspects. And I know from hearing all of them and from speaking to all of them, a lot of times the last thing that they want is to be congratulated for the things that they've done, right? And the work that they've put in to get over it, okay? So by no means am I going to belabor this. But what you have done, Charles, I just want to make sure that I'm putting out there, the work that you have done is A, absolutely incredible, so commendable, but also B, the power of your book. And the reason why it's so important for you to tell your story in the way that you've done is because there's so many other people out there that can relate to similar situations. Drug addiction, as unfortunate as it is a very common thing, right? It's a mental health issue. And a lot of times, I think now as society, we're starting to shift our perception towards drug addiction and looking at it as a mental health thing and not as a criminal activity, right? And we understand that the support is so needed, but your book is opening the doors to so many other people's stories that are also going to be able to relate. And they're going to be able to look at you and what you've been able to do as a path, right? And by no means are we putting you on a pedestal. Again, I'm not doing that. Your work is commendable and it's going to help so many people. And we truly want to thank you for that. So again, thank you for the continued success that you have. Nothing but continued success in the future. And without further ado, man, let's jump right in. Twisted Spiritual Poetry. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, I started writing it about 4 years ago. And I was accumulating all these poems, and I would read them to people at the treatment center that I go to, and I would just read them to different people that I met, you know, at the bus station, and you know, in my travels, and they said, man, this stuff's pretty good. You should get published. And I said, well, I don't know how to do that, and kind of hard to find a publisher that, you know, you can really trust and someone that you feel has your back and that they're, you know, that they're there to support you in whatever you do. And I was just sitting on my bed one day and I was just watching something on Netflix. Can't remember what it was, but I got a call and it was from Workbook Press. And they said, we're looking for Charles Bateman. And I said, well, I said, oh, really? And they said, yeah, and that I had a book with them. And I said, well, I don't have a book with you guys. And they said, well, you don't? And I said, well, no, but my name is Charles Bateman. And I said, well, I write poetry. Would you be interested in that? And I ended up reading a couple of my poems to her, and she said, we would love to publish your book for you. And that's pretty much how it got started.
Fantastic. Now, Charles, I want to stick with the concept of inspiration because you've already started to go into it as to how the book went from just poetry that you had written yourself and poetry that you were verbally reading to those around you to actually getting published. Okay, so we've already started to go down that path of inspiration. So let's stick with that a little bit longer. Now, with regards to poetry itself, Charles, were you someone that very early on in your life always gravitated towards poetry? Were always writing your own poems? Were there poets and other artists that inspired you? Talk to us about that love for writing and that love for poetry specifically and where that came from.
I think it started when I read Footprints, and everybody's read that. I'm sure you've read it.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful poem, and the author is unknown. But when I read that, I thought, my God, that's beautiful, and they just brought healing to me, and I thought, man, I think I could write some poetry. I thought I could do that, and so I did. This was years ago, and I wrote them, and a lot of them were about drug addiction and just the life I was living on the streets of San Diego, California, dealing with gangs and different things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote about 15 poems, and my mother, she read them and she just loved them. And I think that's kind of where it was born in me. And ever since then, I just gravitated towards it because I can vent when I write, and it just brings kind of a emotional healing and inspiration.
Absolutely. Guys, again, here on the line with Charles Bateman. We're discussing his fantastic poetry book, Twisted Spiritual Poetry, available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, but make sure you're heading directly to his personal site, twistedspiritualpoetry.com, to not only purchase the book, to gather all of the information that Charles has to offer. Charles, next question that I'd love to go into, man, and my listening audience is going to get very upset with me if I don't hurry up and ask, okay? So let's just move in that direction here, and let's satisfy their need. Now, this is a poetry book. We know that. So it's littered with poems from your personal experience that you've written over the years. Now, we'd love to get a little bit of a taste. And guys, I just said it, okay? There's no getting around it. If you want to learn all of the fantastic wisdom that Charles has comprised in this book, you want to read all of his poetry, there's no way around it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, twistedspiritualpoetry.com. That's the places you have to go. Since we have you here on the line, Charles, I'd love to take this opportunity, man, as a bit of a teaser to kind of really showcase what to expect. If you could read one of your poems for us, we would truly appreciate that.
Oh, I would love to. This one is called Wisdom, and I wrote it for my oldest brother who is going through a very, very hard divorce. Mm-hmm. And I wrote it about 3 a.m. and sent it to him. And he happened to be up at that time of the morning, and he received it. And it goes, the roads may be long and the mountains are steep. We pay the price for the company we keep. The lessons we learn lined with sorrow and pain. We wonder if we'll ever be happy again. You've been gone for a while, the prodigal son. Your inheritance spent and your heart weighs a ton. But the father rejoiced when he noticed his child. His arms open wide in his forgive my son style. You see, your place in his kingdom was there all along. You may have thought he'd be angry. Thank God you were wrong.
Wow. Wow. Charles, I love that. And again, as we've already touched up on, the things that you're talking about in your book are so relatable, right? Now, that poem, you're talking about, again, it doesn't mention specifically. You talk about the company you keep and how that can have an effect. But what's great is, again, specifically, we know from your telling us, right, and articulating to us that poem derived through a very specific circumstance for your brother. And you wrote that for him and you sent it. But what's great about it is, again, that could be so universal. Because you don't specify, hey, we're talking about losing a loved one going through a divorce, right? You're just talking about the company that you keep. Guys, there's consequences to those decisions. You may not see that ripple effect and how far those ripples can extend. But this is something, again, that's why it's called Wisdom and so appropriately titled.
Yeah. And they say in recovery that if you want to get clean, you have to change everything. Mm-hmm. You can't just change some things. You have to change people you hang out with. Absolutely. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to change your habits. You have to change the way you talk, the way you present yourself to people. And those are things I work on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Charles, and that's a great point that you bring up because, again, from what and by no means am I an expert, okay? I just want to make sure that I'm putting that out there, guys. But from my experience and the people that I know that have battled drug addiction, a lot of times it's not the drug itself that you are addicted to. It's the sequences, the patterns that you're going through, right?
Yeah.
A friend of mine is addicted to cigarettes, but the cigarette itself, and again, I'm oversimplifying here. Of course, he's addicted partially to the nicotine, right? And to the tobacco that's in the cigarette. But a lot of times I remember having a conversation with him and he's like, hey, every single time I come to this particular place, I'm so accustomed to just pulling out a cigarette, lighting it up and smoking it, that every time I come here, the urge is so much stronger because I've built a pattern that I follow every single time. That pattern is what you have to break.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it works. It becomes such a habit that, you would kill to get your next fix because the withdrawals are horrible.
Absolutely.
And you just feel like hammered. You just don't feel good ever. And the only way you can feel good is to get that drug. Mm-hmm. And now I'm learning to live without it. And I feel so much better.
Congratulations,
than I did when I was using.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, the wonderful thing about this, right? The silver lining, the positive to be found is that the same thing can work in reverse. So just how you can adapt bad habits and you can create addictions through bad patterns, you can do the exact same thing in positive ways, right? When you shift and you change things, you can develop positive habits. You can develop positive addictions through the right things because it's the exact same thing. As human beings, we're programmable, right? We're almost like computers in that way where there's specific codes that we can utilize to program our minds. And when it goes through repetition, eventually it sets in place. And then it's a lot easier to follow the same pattern. Getting started is always the hardest part. Again, I'm oversimplifying it, but I love it. I love this discussion. Charles, I know your book doesn't completely revolve around this, but given that you are someone that has battled drug addiction, given that you are someone that has gone through years now of being sober, and your journey is just as difficult, I'm sure. I mean, it goes, but you always are battle tested, right? You're always battling those demons and you're continuing to succeed. And we truly commend that. And again, we don't want to take that for granted. I would be doing my listening audience a disservice if I didn't ask this next question. Someone that has dealt with the experiences that you have had and have accomplished what you have accomplished, what is some words of wisdom that you can relay to a listening audience member, anybody that is going through their own addiction, being drug related or any other addiction? Again, we've just discussed a lot of times addiction is based upon the habits. So you've already started to give some helpful pointers, but talk to our listening audience. Any positive words of wisdom that you'd be able to relay?
I would say that if you want to get clean, if you want a sober life, you have to take on a certain amount of humility and humbleness, and you have to be willing to work hard for that new life. And if you put as much energy into your new life as you did into your drug addiction, you're gonna blow the world apart. Absolutely. You're gonna do so good, and never give up on yourself. You are all worth more than all the treasures of the world. Never give up.
There you have it. Charles, that's incredible, man. Great words of wisdom. Guys, what's so amazing about this is we're at the end of the interview now, and we've discussed so much information, yet we've barely scratched the surface, okay? There's so much still left under the hood to go and examine. I'm going to say it one more time, even though I know I don't have to. And, listen, actually, before we even go there, guys, that's not all, okay? You want to hear something even more incredible? This is the first book that Charles has written, but there's another one on the horizon. Now, it's not available just yet. It's in the last stages of publication, so it'll be released very, very shortly. But make sure you're picking up Twisted Spiritual Poetry but also checking back in frequently to his Amazon, his Barnes & Noble pages, and also twistedspiritualpoetry.com for his other book, Memoirs and Poems of a Misguided Junkie, the moment it becomes available. You surely will not be disappointed, guys. I'm telling you, the wisdom in these two books are second to none, okay? And fantastic journeys for you to take, but also an amazing gift for you to get for someone else. So make sure you're taking this opportunity. You're heading on over there. You're picking up these fantastic books by Charles Bateman. Now, Charles, as we close out, man, I can't think of a better way to close out of such a wonderful interview than with another one of your poems, please.
Okay. All right. I'll give you another one here. This one is called Inspire. I will never judge you with hatred or disdain. I will never cause you strife, that you may in peace remain. God forbid anyone insult you or clip your angel wings. I will stand in awe of you and the wonder that you bring. I will knock down all the walls and break the lock on the door. I will help you take the leap and watch your spirit soar. For you I wrote this insignificant poem to tell you of your worth. You will have your portion and your cup. You will be my friend secure.
Fantastic. Guys, listen, man. If this hasn't moved you, pinch yourself, okay? I don't know what's going on. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, twistedspiritualpoetry.com. Grab your copies of Twisted Spiritual Poetry now. And then when the next book gets published, Memoirs and Poems of a Misguided Junkie, make sure you're picking up that book as well. You surely will not be disappointed.
Yeah. The second book will have twice as many poems as the first one, and also a short biography of my life. So
there you go. Charles, this has been an honor, man. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Oh, thank you. I was so nervous, to be honest about it, because I didn't want to blow it, but you made it easy. I appreciate you. Thank you.